Hello, I'm Irma Baker. Welcome to our show. We're sponsored by RSVP, the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, which is a part of Mature Services. And what we like to do is bring you shows about interesting people, organizations, and activities in our viewing area. And right after these messages, we'll be back with today's guest.
RSVP of Summit County has been making a difference in our community since 1972. RSVP volunteers are increasing the quality of life by participating in programs and organizations that provide important services to the community. RSVP matches personal interests and skills with opportunities to serve. If you're interested in adding more meaning to your life and improving the lives of others, please call 330-253-4597 extension 166.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Linda Gannon, and Linda is a retired social worker who has spent many years in the area working with people to help them make their lives better. Linda, it's so great to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I know that over the years as a social worker, you had the opportunity to see people at all stages of their life in all kinds of situations. And that has brought you to, I think, some very important observations about people, about human nature, and what we need in order to be as fully human and active as we can be. Tell us a little bit about what you've observed about human nature.
I have worked a lot with people who are trauma survivors, and that is both humbling and exciting because so many people can get better and do. What I've noticed, though, was that in order to do this work, I had to take very good care of myself. So then I noticed that other people also needed to take care of themselves. And an interesting thing happened. My business, which was usually very, very good, suddenly dried up. But I had been thinking about writing on the sacredness of self-care, which is some of the information that I gave you. And as soon as I did all that writing, all of my business came back. It was just amazing. It was though it was something that I had to do.
Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, how did you come to that realization? This whole spiritual aspect of self-care.
It's so important. It's just so important. None of us can be our best without our own self-care. And maybe one of the ways to tell you about self-care and what it means is, you know, when you travel on an airplane and the crew gets up to give the directions, and they say, if you're traveling with someone vulnerable or who depends on you, always put on your own oxygen mask first. And the first time I heard that, I thought, that's not right. I won't do that. And then I thought, oh, yes, it is. It's very right. Because if the caretaker has passed out, then everyone is in trouble. So it took that, and then all my other observations about human nature and how hard people worked without taking care of themselves. And you know, it was kind of, there was a time when it looked like that was the thing to do, give, 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 give. But until we're restored, until we are as healthy as we can be, we don't have much to give.
Well, that's very interesting because giving, you know, we always say it's better to give than to receive and all that. But you're saying that we need to receive good self-care from ourselves.
Yes.
First, before we can really fully give to other people?
Yes. Yes, yes. You know, I had a patient a long time ago, and she would overgive. God bless her. She was such a generous soul. She would give, give, give too much. And I said, this is ridiculous. You don't have to do it that way. You know, when someone comes to you at church, she would take them home, give them a meal, and give the kids all clean clothes. And I said, just ask, just answer what they're asking you. And so she called me up one day and she said, I did it. I did it. Somebody asked me for something and I just said, how can I help you? And all they wanted was a referral somewhere. It was wonderful. It was, so she got it. She got it. And many people overgive.
Do you think that's something that's built into the way we're raised?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're supposed to be givers and not takers. And we are supposed to be givers and not takers, but we're supposed to be full givers and then share.
Well, the story that you just told us was very revealing, because certainly that woman felt that she was doing what she should be doing.
Exactly.
And in the process, she was overdoing and probably not fulfilling the needs of the people she was trying to help.
Exactly.
But how do we make that transition? How do we look at ourselves and say, what is the self-care that I need in order to be fully well myself and help others to be?
I think it comes gradually. First of all, we have to have enough rest. I mean, it's just pure physical need. And we have to have good nutrition. And we have to take time to listen to the Spirit. If we're running, we don't get time to get directions, do we? You know? So adequate rest is one of the first things I ask people to take care of. And many have a struggle doing it, but they do it, and then they feel so much better. You can think better, you can whatever.
I'm going to stop you right here and say, okay, Linda, give us some tips for good sleep.
Going to bed at the same time every night. Telling yourself it's really okay to go to bed at a good time. Let's say 10 o'clock. Let's say 10 o'clock. And it's really okay to stop working at 9 and to have yourself a quiet time before you go to bed. Good nutrition, because you have to be, I've wakened hungry in the night many times and gone over and got some crackers, and then, you know, you brush your teeth and go back to bed. So you don't sleep well on an empty stomach. You need, you know, milk is always good to help people go to sleep unless you're allergic to it. So does that make sense?
I think it does. I think you're saying, again, it's that mental or spirit of the person coming to the fore. That, because you said you have to tell yourself it's okay to go to bed at a certain time. It's okay to put away all the responsibilities of the day. What about people, though, who feel that, oh my gosh, I've got a million things to do. I can't even get them done by 10 o'clock. How can I say at 9 o'clock, okay, I'm done for the day?
Well, how do you do it waking up in the morning? Probably if you go to sleep really late and you have worked hard till you go to sleep, it's really not easy to get out of bed the next morning. It's brutal. And I remember days when I would drive myself and, you know, I had to put the alarm clock across the room so that I would get out of bed to turn it off. And then I had to make it closer to the bathroom so that I went in there and got a shower instead of turning around and going back to bed. You know that.
I think that's happened to a lot of us a lot of times.
Yes, yes. So it's really deciding what's your first need. And for so many people, it's sleep. But good nutrition is also a basic need.
You've mentioned that, and I thought it was very interesting what you said, because so many people are dieting, or they're watching their weight, or they're being very nutrition conscious, and yet you said you can't sleep on an empty stomach.
No.
So talk a little bit about what real good nutrition is, as opposed to what maybe we think of as the popular concept of good nutrition.
Well, I think good nutrition is plenty of fruits, plenty of vegetables. A little treat now and then is not a bad thing. But fruits and vegetables, lettuce, all that, all of the basics that they say. And there was the food pyramid for now, and now, for a while now that has changed, and there are different things that are important. They advocate less, I think, eggs and fish, but the protein in eggs is very good. So if you pay attention to what you like, and you pay attention to what you have to add slowly to have you be better, then you're working on something. Then you have possibilities.
Well, it sounds like what you're advocating isn't the, okay, I'm only going to eat one type of food, or I'm never going to eat chocolate again, or I'm never going to eat an egg again. Are you saying, you're saying more moderation?
More in moderation, exactly. Exactly. And if you want to be aware of your weight, then it's really important that you do not starve yourself, but that you eat a generous amount all the time, so that it's not depleting you. If you want to really be healthy, because people will starve and then they'll binge, and then they'll starve and then they'll binge, and that doesn't work very well.
That's very interesting, because so many people, do feel that it's very rigid, very strict. But I want to go back to something that you said earlier, and we didn't really follow up too much on it, and that is the whole spiritual aspect of self-care. Because often I think we think of self-care in the bodily, physical, and yet you've pretty much developed a philosophy that brings the spiritual into as an influencer on how we take care of ourselves.
Everyone's spiritual experiences are different, but we do need to leave room for spirit, for a faith, however that is, for a faith. Even God rested on the seventh day. We have to keep aware of that. Because there are those of us who would have worked harder on that day trying to catch up. But it's always so interesting. When you're rested enough and when you have enough nutrition, then you can do the things you need to do. So I rarely see deprivation as a motivator. I think we have empty spaces for spirit, and it nourishes me just 10 minutes in the morning just to listen quietly, just to be quiet. I find very helpful.
How can people learn that? I think that most people, after about 10 seconds, your mind has gone in 30 different directions.
That's true. It does take time. It does. But every now and then, my grandchildren, when they were little, they'd say, "What are you doing, Grammy?" And I'd say, "I'm just taking a quiet moment." Because sometimes with all the hustle bustle, I just would sit down for 5 minutes, and they want to know what I'm doing. But you just need a quiet moment here and there. So making room for spirit is so different for so many people, but it's the willingness. So if you start with 2 minutes, wonderful. And the next day maybe you can make it 3. 10 is pretty easy now.
You say 10 is pretty easy now. So this is something that people aren't going to develop that ability to be quiet for 10 minutes overnight.
No, but it's worth it. It's worth the trial.
Take your time and make it happen gradually.
Yes.
Well, are there some kind of supports for self-care?
I think as we look at life, as you pay attention to how your life goes on, you can build in the support. You can build them in. You think, am I eating nutritiously? Am I getting enough sleep? Always enough sleep. It's so crucial. And I think when people feel that much better, then they can go on, you know, and continue to let themselves have good sleep. But there are supports. Your friends will support you if you're doing the right thing, I think. Let's see, I'm thinking about, there are a lot of books, I believe, on self-care, or care of the self, or care of the soul.
What about worries? What about how do you face worries? Perhaps when you're trying to eat right so that you don't binge, or you're trying to sleep and those worries keep coming at you.
Well, I do have a plan for worries.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
If there's something you are worried about, sit down immediately and figure, is there something I should do about this today? And if there is, go do it. If there isn't anything to do, then you can check in around noon if you want. Noon? Anything you're supposed to do about it? No. Well then, God's hands. And in the evening, before you go to bed, anything you're supposed to do? No? Okay. Then it goes to God's hands.
How do you help people who feel that they're responsible for everything? Because
there are so many of us. I suppose the best learning is that it's really not up to you. You don't have the power to do that. You know, you don't have you feel responsible, but examine it. Check it out. Say, now does this really make sense? You've got a good friend. You can say, listen, I've been thinking that this is my fault. What do you think? And they'll go, oh boy, no. Check it out with people you trust. Because we just really don't have that kind of power.
It's really hard in our society to feel that way, because that whole self-sufficiency and independence and I can handle anything attitude. But what you're saying is that when you bring spirituality in it, you have perhaps a more realistic look at what's going on?
Mm-hmm.